What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday, September 13th, and this is the College Football Daily. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and we have a very special guest today. Former Pro Bowl lineman and Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth is going to join me on today's program to talk to you guys about your football tailgating tips and as well as what he thinks about the college football and NFL landscape. So let's bring him in now. Let's not waste any more time. Mark, thanks for joining me, man. I got to start out, of course. Football season is back in full swing. Everyone loves tailgating. I know you have plenty to say about tailgating here this season. I mean, you have to be fired up, man.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I love football. The thing I love about football is it brings us together as communities, and tailgating's a big part of that. Home gating's a big part of that. And it starts, to me, the centerpiece is the television set you're watching on. LG OLED TVs, man. I tell you what, award-winning 65-inch television, OLED C2 series, the best picture quality, realistic color, sharp images, no blurring during fast motion scenes, movies, gamings, and sports. It's what it's all about. LG.com for more information. Then no party is complete without pizza. Papa John's, the football pizza, thin crust pizza, uncut in the shape of a real football with Papa John's signature pepperoni. It's available nationally through September 25th at $10.99. Find out more at papajohns.com. And then you've got to have the sides, right? When you're tailgating, whether it's hot dogs or burgers, you got to have the Bush beans as the sure side of a good time. Bush's Original or Bush's Grilling Beans. Secret family recipe with cured bacon, fine brown sugar, signature blend of spices, bushbeans.com. And then Slick Deals, you're going to love this. A community of millions of people working together to save you money. 12 million users vet and vote on the best deals on the internet. It's the best products, the best prices from the best vendors. You can set alerts on your phone to get notified when the deal hits the criteria you've set at slickdeals.net for more information.
I got to ask you, Mark, because, I mean, you are a University of Idaho alum. Now, people might not think of Idaho as a big-time college tailgating spot, but, hey, man, you went there, great player over there before you went to the NFL. Let's take a look back real quick. Your college tailgating experience. I know you were getting ready for the football games, obviously, but what was that atmosphere like out there in Idaho?
Well, Idaho is I love playing at the University of Idaho. And just knowing the folks in Moscow, Idaho, it was kegs of beer, chips and hot dogs. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? It's pretty simple process. But I tell you what, love my alma mater. And I will say this about the University of Idaho, man. They gave me an opportunity. My childhood dream growing up was to play in the National Football League. And I didn't have any real, coming out of Anchorage, Alaska, I didn't have any real offers other than the University of Idaho. So they gave me a chance to continue my football career, to continue to go out there, graduate, and get an education. So I owe them a debt of gratitude. As a matter of fact, 100% of everything I make on Cameo goes to the University of Idaho Scholarship Fund. So I do some stuff for the University of Idaho in that regard as well.
Great stuff for your alma mater, of course, the Idaho Hall of Famer, Mark Schlereth, joining me. So, Mark, I mean, you played a long time in the NFL as well, but, you know, going back to when the draft was a little bit longer than 7 rounds, I mean, you were a 10th round pick. So I was actually curious about this, you know, for someone who had a long career, multiple-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl champion. I mean, what is your message to college players nowadays who, you know, if you don't get that first or second round status, then they might say, well, my career might not pan out the way it is. So what do you have to send to these college players and say, you know what, just because you're a 6th or 7th round pick doesn't mean you can't make it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you get there, right? By car, by bus, or by plane. It's getting there. And once you get there, you know, my whole thought process was, hey, listen, if I'm not good enough to play, then I'm okay with that. Like there's plenty of guys who are great football players that aren't good enough to play at the next level. And that's just the reality of the situation. But my big thing was, I am not going to talk myself out of making a football team. And it's not going to be from a lack of preparation, a lack of study, a lack of effort. If I get cut, it's because I'm just not a good enough player. And I figured I could live with that aspect of it. So, you know, the big thing for me is I walked away from 12 years of playing, 12 years of starting the National Football League. And there was zero regrets. There was never a time where I look back on my career and go, boy, I wish I would have studied harder. I wish I would have prepared more. I wish I would have lifted hard. There's nothing I could have done more than I did. And so when you live life that way, you can walk away and go, okay, what's my next adventure? What's next for me in my life? So I was blessed to have that kind of attitude and to be able to do that in my NFL career.
So obviously another thing about college that's vastly different. I mean, even only over the last 2 or 3 years now is the introduction of name, image, and likeness, and the fact that now it is now legal essentially to start getting some money to go to these colleges, or at least extra money to go to these colleges. So I just want your quick thoughts on what NIL means in the grand scheme of things for college football. Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it a little bit somewhere in between?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we're going to see exactly how it pans out, but I think it's good for the players that they can garner a deal, like they can make extra money. It's good for them. It's good for their families, and ultimately, college football is a multi-billion-dollar organization, right? And so, like, I don't see the issue with sharing some of the wealth, and I realize that not everybody gets paid, and you know what? That's life, man. That is just the way it works. Just like when you play, when you're an oft-injured guard out of the University of Idaho, you don't make as much money as the quarterback does. That's okay. That's the way life works. And so I don't really see much of an issue with the NIL deals and some of these college players getting to get paid. That doesn't bother me.
If you had to go back to your Idaho days, was there one business or sponsorship that you might have wanted back in your college playing days?
There ain't nobody that would have given me a penny for anything. So no, I don't even think about it. So now listen, man, I had the greatest time, and my greatest friends in the world are guys I play with at the University of Idaho. That we still get together every year. We have a reunion. We've been doing it for about 25 straight years, where about 15 of us get together at one of my buddies' cabins, either in Seattle or either in just outside of Spokane. And we spend the weekend together, eating barbecue meat, drinking beer, and telling lies. And it's like, again, it's one of the great things ever to have that camaraderie and have that fellowship and have that connection that I have with the guys that I play with at the University of Idaho.
It's amazing how you mentioned all of those special things about the college game. And that's what people love about college football, that it's special, it's unique. But the critics of college football now are going to say maybe it's a little bit too similar to the NFL, or it's going down that path. And namely, it's because of the college football playoff expansion in a couple of years, where it's going to go from 4 to 12 teams. So people are going to say, well, maybe now college football is now too much of an NFL model. Obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten are expanding. There could be 2 super conferences in a couple of years as well. So I just want your initial thoughts on, do you think it's a good idea that college football has the playoff and now it's going to expand to 12 teams? And as well, your thoughts on the realignments that are going on, especially with the Big Ten and the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think more teams in the playoff is great. You still have the haves and the have-nots. I mean, let's face it. When you're Alabama, you may play one game a year where you have like individuals. I mean, so it's just the way the game is, and at least I think through 12 teams, at least, and every conference is represented by the winner of that conference. So I think with 12 teams, there's no more of that. Well, if my team would have got in, they were undefeated, they didn't even get in. Like it squelches that kind of uprising, if you will. And so anything can happen. I came from 1AA at the time. We had 16-team playoff, and I thought it was awesome. So that part doesn't bother me at all. The super conferences, like, it is what it is, and so those conferences are the ones that are on TV all the time and the ones we root for, and I get that, but there's still great tradition everywhere else you go. So I know I hunkered down the other night on the Pac-12 network and watched my Idaho Vandals lose a close one to Washington State, and I was thoroughly entertained throughout the whole broadcast. So it is what it is, man. College football is awesome. I love the NFL. They are their own separate entities. It doesn't bother me that even if they grow closer together, that doesn't bother me.
So there are still some stark differences, according to you, and I like to hear that. So as far as some of these top-notch college players, including defending Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young, you have C.J. Stroud, Bijan Robinson, running back from over Texas, just to name a few. Some of those guys, and maybe some other guys, who stands out to you among the college football elite right now that could make instant impacts in the NFL? As we see it all the time now, rookies make these instant impacts as soon as they're drafted into the NFL.
Yeah, interestingly enough, you talked about the quarterbacks, and that's what everybody's looking for, right? And we've seen so many guys, from Justin Herbert to Joe Burrow to Patrick Mahomes, come in and, like you said, just add water, instant success. So, the NFL is really looking toward those guys to make those big impacts. And let's face it, the way the NFL works right now, if you don't have a quarterback that can play, you don't have a quarterback that can lead your team, that can be elite, you don't have much of a chance of winning in the National Football League. So those are the guys that everybody looks at. So we'll see exactly how those guys pan out.
So as far as the season is concerned for college football, and do you have a team that stands out that can maybe challenge a team like Alabama or Georgia? As we saw, at least over the first couple of weeks, it's basically much more of the same. Maybe some other teams will rise up to the cream of the crop. But, I mean, do you see anybody really challenging Alabama and Georgia at this point this year, maybe even in the next couple of years?
Right. Well, I think it's always the usual suspects, the Ohio States of the world, the Georgias of the world, all those teams. Obviously, LSU lost one in week one, but those are the teams that you look at. They're just so thick in talent. So really hard. Like there's 4 or 5 teams in the nation that I think just are head and shoulders above people from a talent standpoint. So those are always going to be the teams that probably rise to the top. So. It's the usual suspects as far as I'm concerned when it comes to college football. But again, college football for me is not something I follow as closely as I follow the NFL. It's as I'm prepping for my NFL game, we have college football up in the background, but it's not one of those things that I spend a lot of time studying until the draft rolls around. So I just kind of enjoy it as a casual fan because I'm a big time fan of the NFL.
When it comes to the NFL now, of course, I would never let you get out of here without getting some NFL thoughts as well. So are there any rookies you are expecting here in 2022 that are really going to maybe pop off the page immediately? We saw it in the past couple of years, obviously, but who stands out to you here in 2022?
All right. I mean, there's always those guys that you look at that you think, oh my God, this kid, the Dotson kid that's with Washington right now. I think he was from Penn State, the receiver. I know in training camp he's been just jumping off the table, really showing well with Washington. So I mean, there are so many guys that have the potential to be really good, no question about it. And we shall see. Does Kenny Pickett get an opportunity in Pittsburgh? I think he does. Obviously, if Mitch Trubisky falters a little bit, but that was a kid. I like the kid. Who's a kid out of Cincinnati? Ritter. That went to Atlanta. That kid played really well in the preseason, so it'll be interesting to see how he does as well. So, and more nowadays, you see these young kids as the NFL morphs closer into college football with some of the schemes and the way they play the game. You see more and more of these collegiate wide receivers, tight ends, and quarterbacks having success early in the league than was the case when I came in the league.
I got to ask you one more, of course, and it's about one of your old teams, the Denver Broncos. Of course, they made huge headlines over the offseason. Russell Wilson, of course, former big college star himself as well, but obviously, again, one of the better quarterbacks over the last decade or so here in the NFL. But now he's on a new team, the Denver Broncos, your old stomping grounds, of course. And it seems like this team is an instant Super Bowl contender with him at the top. Of course, Jerry Jeudy, among other guys on offense, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon in the backfield. What are your thoughts on Denver? Is this a legit Super Bowl contender here in 2022?
Yeah, I think they're a legit playoff contender. Super Bowl, maybe a little bit of a stretch. And part of that is like some of these guys, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, some of these guys have not fully developed. And I think one of the things when you don't have a legit kind of starting franchise quarterback and you're a young player, I think, you think you're working hard, you think you're preparing, you think you're studying, you think you're doing all the things right. And then a guy like Russell Wilson walks in the door and you realize, oh, shoot, I haven't done all the things that are required to be really good. And so there's going to be a growth process with everybody else on the team. And I think that's what really sets it apart. So Super Bowl contender, you got a chance. I think they get into the playoffs, and you get in the playoffs, anything can happen.
Mark Schlereth, 3-time Super Bowl champion, joining me on the College Football Daily. Mark, I really appreciate the time as always, man. I look forward to talking to you hopefully again soon. And again, we're going to have another great football season here in 2022.
Absolutely. Take care.
Mark Schlereth with me on the College Football Daily. We'll see you next time right here on 24/7 Sports. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast as well. I'm Nick Kosko saying so long once again, the College Football Daily here on 24/7 Sports.